Welcome back to another episode on Front Row for Economy.lk. We have with us a very special guest here with us today to speak to you on disruption, on the way forward in terms of businesses. We have none other than Dr. Sanjeeva Veeravarana, who is the founder, chairman, and chief architect of WSO2. Welcome to Front Row.
Thank you, sir.
A few questions, I think, in today's episode. How do you see traditional businesses? I know you're coming from a software, very much an IT background, but for some of the traditional businesses in Sri Lanka, for them to survive, for them to innovate, for them to last the distance, what do they need to do to be competitive, in particular on the digital side?
Okay. So I would say that for a traditional business, the challenge for a traditional business is to create an environment that allows them to keep moving as technology changes. So digital, this idea of digital transformation and digital business it sounds like a big word and so forth, but fundamentally it's really about saying apply technology aggressively in appropriate ways, in ways that allow the company to keep moving forward instead of keep doing things the same way. So becoming an organization which can do that is really about getting the people in the company to start thinking about innovation and evolution and adaptivity in a different way. Instead of kind of saying, well, somebody from the top says this is our imperative for this year, go off and do that, but rather saying everyone has to kind of get into the mindset of saying I'm interested in looking at different ways of doing stuff and so forth. And that really comes from the culture of the organization. So if you really want to survive as in this digital transformation of business, for every business, the way to do it is by changing the organization to something that is able to adapt and able to evolve in ways that were not needed in the last 100 or so years, because the internet has fundamentally changed the rate and pace at which something can be adopted, as something can be deployed, something can go global. And the people who are in leadership positions in most organizations, especially in Sri Lanka, are pre that era. And so they're not digital natives. Digital natives means people who are born into the digital era. Our customers more and more are digital natives. And in the next 10 years, essentially majority will become digital native. They expect a different experience, a different behavior, different quality of service, different response time than our traditional mode. Right? When you're used to Facebook, when you're used to Google, when you're used to, as you type, 10 suggestions come up. You don't accept, I contact the company and they tell you, first you go on hold for half an hour. And then after that they tell you, okay, somebody will contact you back. And then I can tell you I have solar power at home. Right now, 2 days ago I found it wasn't working. I called them up. They said, oh, somebody will come. The guy doesn't show up. I call again. They come yesterday, doesn't show up. Now today they promised to come. I'm not going to name the company, but this is not okay, right? Now in that case, I'm captive. I can't do anything about it because I bought the system from them. I had to wait for them. But in most situations, you're not captive. There are alternatives. And so if a company doesn't learn to create an environment where they can use technology, they can use better information management and create an atmosphere where everybody feels like they need to be in front of the customer and get them to be more successful, you're going to die. As simple as that. Right? And it's also not just the customer, it's also employees. Who wants to work in a company that is so stodgy and lethargic and slow that you want to do something, you have to live through all kinds of process.
So to balance that mismatch, I think it's all about creating that agility within organizations.
Right.
How does organizations now try to reinvent some of their structures to cater to that?
I think it's not just a structure, it is almost destructuring the structure is what it takes. That is, structure gets in the way of innovation and agility, right? Because structure means, if I want to change something, I have to reorganize. And you see companies announcing reorg after reorg, trying to get their act together. And reorg fundamentally just moves one guy from top to put some other person on top and move some people around because that person doesn't want to work with those people, etc. Whereas what you really need to look at is, how do I create an organizational operational model where the structure is just there because you need a structure to run a large organization, but it's not how you execute, it's not how you think, it's not how you create, it's not how you add value. It's just an operational mechanism, but the system itself allows people with good ideas to communicate good ideas get support for it, and get those executed and measured and result produced.
Just changing track a bit, and I think from your vantage point with some of the services and technology, especially on the middleware side that you provide, what do you see as some of the trends that will shape the future going forward?
Okay, there's fundamentally it's the use of software to make things more agile and faster. And from the integration technology point of view, it's the idea that you don't control everything anymore. The idea is sort of destructuring of the decomposition of the enterprise. There's an old business adage about sort of context versus core. Focus more on the core, outsource things, and when you outsource, you use software to integrate everything. Nobody runs their own shipping system anymore. No one runs their own distribution network anymore. Whether it comes to digital marketing or whatever the thing it is, there are specialized organizations that can help you. So the trend we see is this concept of sort of decomposition of the enterprise from a traditional vertically integrated, a single thing that goes from this corner to that corner. Saying we focus on this part, we are fantastic at that part, we are the best at that part. We go get shipping from somebody else, we go get this from somebody else, we go get that from somebody else. But it's fully integrated. The customer doesn't feel the pain. You go to Amazon and you buy something. Amazon doesn't ship, because now Amazon's starting their own shipping company, and all the other guys are worried because Amazon's such a big organization. But in general, companies like that, like Uber, if you do Uber, if you go to Uber, payment is not handled by Uber. I think they use a company called Braintree or something to handle payment. Maps, which is fundamental to Uber, is not from Uber. It comes from Google. Right? So Uber is like a company that almost doesn't do anything other than put a bunch of things together and give a fantastic user experience. Right? That is the future of how we should evolve.
So I think leaves us with a lot to think about. A lot of the companies and some of our listeners and viewers to rethink some of their strategies that is currently going on in their organizations. So thank you, Dr. Sanjeeva, for joining us on this episode on Front Row. Please stay tuned for future episodes like this where we interview eminent personalities.